own experience in HR. So just to give a bit more background, I've worked in HR for over 15 years. One of the things I didn't see for a long time was people that were like me in rooms. And one of the biggest challenges that I had was not to have somebody hold my hand, not to have somebody kind of guide my path. So I can imagine with every kind of sector that you could be working in, this would be an opportunity to either impact somebody that's behind you, or to kind of to kind of be looking up to somebody above you, so that you can be the one that can say, I've impacted somebody, or I'm being impacted. One of the things I trust in life is that when you reach one, you teach one. So I always want to work by that mantra. And when you reach one, it's really important, because even if it's just one person that you've impacted, it kind of just changes the whole dynamic of the world. um, and definitely the call to action, it's probably going to start tonight for the next kind of 6 weeks. We will give further information about our next networking event, which will be then obviously in person. It will be in Leeds. We'll give you further details via the WhatsApp group that hopefully all of you have joined now. But yeah, so get that chance, that opportunity to sign up. We will give further details. Thank you so much. So before we hear from the speakers, I think this is what I want to just emphasize in terms of just saying impact is important for me. So community is something that I like to work with. So I think part of why I decided that we kick off, as in when I step into the leadership role within Leeds, is just to be a mentor and guide people towards that. So it is important for me to highlight that, I know people like Calvin and Sibu, they've been my mentors. There have been people that I've worked and looked up to. Sibu, for example, we work in the same sector, we work in the same field, but she stepped in on leadership roles a bit more quicker than I did, and so she was somebody that held my hand. So I really want to appreciate her in this particular moment, because yes, she's made an impact. She might not notice this, but she's always made an impact in my life. My HR career couldn't have been better because of how Sibu showed me how to do a simple CV, make it look better for that client that I really wanted to attract, all the way to how to speak and present yourself, just during that course of that period. And I think all the way up to leadership roles that we've attained, Sibu's always been there. Calvin has always been that person that champions the ability to be able to speak proudly. I think one of the events that we've attended together, he was able to kind of give me so much feedback, and I think those are some of the things that we can count for when it comes to mentorship. It's just that ability to get somebody that gives you that accountability to say, Lorato, show up and really look the part, just not just by looks, but also just being able to stand by your strengths. So I appreciate both of them, and I just want for them to know that right now on this journey that we're about to start. So yes, we'll begin by listening to Calvin. So Calvin has already been introduced, so you guys know exactly who he is. But yeah, I'll pass it over to Calvin now.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Big up to BIP team. I really appreciate that you chose me instead of choosing many other important, great people. You decided to say, you know what, Calvin, can you be part of this panel? It's amazing. And greetings to everyone. I heard Lerato saying good evening, and I'm saying, remember, there are people are also in other parts of the world. It's still in the morning, in the afternoon. So it's safe to say greetings to everyone. I like the smiles that I'm seeing there. But thank you so much. I don't take this for granted. And one thing that I like is one of my, when you talk about mentorship, is something that I love with all my heart, my lungs, my nails, my what. Oh, no, let me not mention nails. People would think otherwise. But it's a topic that I love, something that I'm passionate about. So I like simple things. I think simplicity is everything. So because of time, I think I was just given 10 minutes? 10 minutes to share. So as I start, I like to give definitions, and also maybe let me just in brief talk about my background. My background was a bit bad, and both my parents passed away when I was young. So I stayed with different people. So there was that gap of especially the fatherhood, someone who would speak into my life. Hence, this is important to me. So number one, maybe define what is mentor? I think in a simple terms, for me, a mentor is like a big brother, a big sister, a coach, or a guide. You know, when you have a map, it guides you. Good mentors, what they do, they share their lessons. Number two, they will help you avoid mistakes. Number three, they will cheer you on when things get hard, like what Lerato said. So I think they play those three things in your life. When you have a good mentor, they'll share certain lessons. And when I'm saying lessons, there are secrets. Each and every person has a secret. So the more you draw closer to a mentor, the more they begin to open up and say, you know what? How I managed to get to this place, I did one, two, three. So these are the lessons. And when I also talk about lessons, you know what? These days, you can have access to information. However, you cannot replace or you cannot buy experience. So one of the key things when why mentors are important is the experience that they have. It can be good, it can be bad, but out of that experience, there is great wisdom and lessons. So another thing, they don't just make decisions for you, but they help you make better choices. So a good mentor does not make decisions for you, but they give you options. They help you make your own decisions because decisions will define your destiny. You are here because you made a decision to be part of this. And thanks to I saw some of my colleagues, I saw Tulani and other people connected all the way from South Africa. I appreciate that. So my journey as a mentor. So I hope you will time me because when I start talking, I might not stop Lerato. So be my timer, okay? All right. So my journey as a mentorship, um, like I said, I gave it a background that I grew up, my both my parents passed away when I was young, and there was that gap, someone I could look up to, someone who could speak to me, someone who could come and rebuke me and tell me, no, don't do this, do that. Okay. So mentorship has shaped me for who I am today, both personal and professional. And what I'm sharing today is not things that I read on the books, but it came from like real people, real conversations, and great impact. So when I started my journey, I didn't have like formal mentors. It started like as having people that I used to observe, people around me, people who inspired me, people that when I look at them, I'm like, I want to get there. So one of the first mentors that I want to talk about is my uncle. I've got my uncle, he's also here in the UK, because I stayed with him for about, I think, 10 years. And I used to observe him, how he do things when things were tough at home, he was always happy, he was always excited. And number two, I learned how to be smart and clean because every time, it didn't matter how things were bad. When you meet him out there, you would think he's a millionaire. By then, that was about 25 years ago, but now, yeah, he's in a good space. I don't want to say he's a millionaire, lest people start asking their number. But anyway, he was that person that I was like, wow, you know what? This person doesn't allow circumstances to shape who he is, to behave, but he was always positive about life. Fun enough, he used to play certain music that I used to hate, but because I was so close to him, later on in life, I find myself enjoying the same music. So, one of the key lessons about mentors is not only what they say, they begin to impart who they are in your life. So, it's careful. It's very important when you choose a mentor because at the end of the day, there's a high chance that you might end up behaving or doing things the way they are. Like, what, when we're growing up, my father used to say to me, may his soul rest in peace. He used to say, don't do as I say, but don't do as I do. You know what? And he would take me to church. Can you imagine? He would take me to church, but he never ever attended to church. But good mentors will also demonstrate the desirable. Is what they say, it's what they live. My second mentor that I want to talk about is Dr. Goodwill Shana. So I used to see him from afar because he was like big, he was like far. And times I'm like, how do I get there? So I'll observe him, I'll listen to him, I'll watch over his life and what, and then I'll also go into his house. The things that he used to say is exactly that he will be, when it comes to his lifestyle, what he tells you, what he tells other people is exactly that he implements. So for me, that changed me. It helped me boost my confidence. I'm telling you, even if you put me in front of 1,000 people, because of the mentors, like I said, it's lessons. And one of the key things I learned from these two mentors is things that took them 10 years. For me, you find that it will take you 3 years because they will tell you, like for instance, let's say when it comes to investments, money, you realize that sometimes maybe they made mistakes and all that. So when you go to them and say, how did you get here? How are you doing it? Because they will share wisdom. Wisdom is knowing what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. So they will share that information. These are the secrets that I'm talking about. To say, no, avoid one, two, three, four. And a mentor, I like this example. I like giving practical examples. A mentor is like a GPS, and I'm sure most of us, if you are driving, you always put a GPS. When you're going home, if there's traffic, sometime it will tell you 10 this way. Like, no, but I'm just 5 minutes away. I'm used to using this route. I know home is there. And I remember one time ignoring the GPS when it told me to say 10 left, and I avoided. Guess what? The the distance that where I was supposed to spend 5 minutes, I took 30 minutes. So mentors are there to tell you to say, you know what, I know you have information and knowledge, but I want you to take this route. So there's so many lessons that I've learned that I believe that if it wasn't for their impact in my life, I wouldn't be where I am. So it's important how you choose a mentor. Don't just choose any person, because sometimes you see, they say, don't judge the book by its cover. Take time before you make a decision and say, I want Lerato, I want Calvin to be my mentor. Take time digging. And whilst I'm saying that, no mentor is perfect. I'm not saying you're looking for someone who's perfect. All I'm saying is some people also will sell you the wrong, you know, book where you're like, okay, this person is rich, let me follow them. What if the person stole money and then started a business? So those are some of the things that are important that when you're choosing a mentor, observe, take time. For me, I'll pray about it and seek God. Lord, I'm looking for someone to advise me. And then, thirdly, as I wrap up, when it comes to my profession, when I started health and safety, my friends were around. They were doing different things. Someone was doing law, someone is doing accounting, they were architect. And I'm saying, health and safety. I'm like, what is that? No one knew anything about health and safety. And I was stuck. I'm like, okay, I need answers. And I went on internet and I came across Michael Emery. So Michael became my mentor because I saw that he was running a business and said, one day I want to start my own business. I started pursuing him. I started asking questions, which courses to do. He was sort of like interviewing me to say, okay, tell me, what is it that you want? Guess what? I was in South Africa by then, and I'm here in the UK. And now we're making arrangements to meet. So sometimes with mentorship, it's not people that you can see on a daily basis. Sometimes it can be someone that you're observing or following. And sometimes it's not going to the person. All my mentors, I never went and told them that I want you to be my mentor. But I made an effort. So as I wrap up, I don't know whether I'm still within 10 minutes. As I wrap up, I always talk about three things. All of us, we have those three stages. There are three types of people in your life. There are those that are up, that are above, where you're saying, these people inspire me. These are your mentors. These are your leaders. These are people who have sort of like arrived, made it in life. So normally you realize that you are the one who need those people, but they don't necessarily need you because they are in a good space. And then the second stage, there are people also who are looking up to you, who are being inspired by what you do and all that. But you don't realize because they are under you, they are low. Sometimes they call you, and some of you avoid them. It's, hey, this person is always calling me, but because they see something in your life. So if you can recognize that, you also allow them and share the information. There's a book that I read many years ago that talks about pass the baton. So as you get all the information from the mentors above you, you also have to pass that information because that's the legacy. It's important to pass the information. I think it's Miles Monroe, if I'm not mistaken, who said one of the richest place is a graveyard because people die with those ideas, with that information, with those secrets in life. To say, that's why some families, especially in our black families, there's always that one uncle, one aunt who's rich. When they die, the whole family falls apart. Why? Because they never shared that information. They never passed the baton. And then thirdly, the last group is there are people who become part of you. This is your family. These are people, friends who become family, they become part of you. You can't avoid them. So once you understand, you identify those three levels, your mentors, people are up to you. It's your responsibility to always pursue them. And I'll tell you, most of my mentors, they were always busy, but I never gave up. I'll call them. I'll knock the door like, hey, Kelvin again, because I was hungry for growth. I was hungry for change. I was hungry to grow. And I keep pursuing them. And then at the same time, like Lerato said, I love sharing information. There are people under me. When they call me because I'm busy, I always make time, especially weekends, to say, what is it? And I share that information. I pass the information. And the last stage, there are those, if whether I like them or not, they are part of you know what? But then as I wrap up, I don't know whether to come into um to questions. As I wrap up, one of the things that is also my passion is I realize that most of the time we have mentors who are sort of strangers, people from other families. What's happening in the family structure? And I was like, can you imagine one day half of the things that I talk about is things that I learned from my mom and dad, where I'm like, my mentor is my mom and dad. And this is a challenge to everyone, even those who are listening, to say the information that you have, pass it to your children. If you have children, to your siblings, let's share that information so that one day they'll be like, you know what, when you are gone, you know what, and they'll be like, you know what, Kelvin, I learned one, two, three things from Kelvin. So let it start. They say charity begins at home. So don't be great out there. Let's start from home. Let's start with your kids, with your brothers, with your sisters. Let's start mentoring and sharing that information. And then we take it up from there. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. Honestly, if everybody could clap in the room, I'd be so happy. That was very powerful. I think there's a lot that we can take away from that, really, because there's so many things that, easily people ignore these aspects that you've mentioned, especially coming from a Black background. I can imagine we've got people that we look up to, and some of their traits are quite bad. But once you pull yourself in, you rein yourself. You've mentioned quite a few people there, very iconic people like Miles Monroe. I love him so much. God, rest his soul. Those are quite unique mentors, because those are men that you don't need them to be on earth to mentor you, but you can listen to his material. He's left that. So, you said charity. Oh, sorry, my head is small. Basically, that's all I'm saying, and I can't shrink my headphones. So charity begins at home is so important, because listening to people like Miles Monroe, passing it down to your children, it goes generation to generation. Because I can't believe that Miles Monroe's son, I think he's called Miles Monroe Jr., he's a mentor as well. So he's carried on that legacy. Imagine how impactful his dad is. So even, I think, if you've not seen it, his wedding was amazing when they recorded his dad actually giving him words of wisdom beyond the grave. You've mentioned that some people had so many like dreams, but they've gone to die with those dreams. And that's part of what Miles Monroe speaks about a lot, to say, don't let your dreams die. Basically, sometimes they could die whilst you're alive. So mentors are there to kind of empower you, to pull you forward. And I think when you if you want to become a mentee, that's part of what you should be seeing. And I love Kelvin for this. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was beautiful. Sibu, I hope you're ready, darling. I hope you are ready to shine. I'll give you the platform now.
Thank you. How do I follow Calvin after such an amazing delivery and just explaining everything? I think you've taken everything that I wanted to say, so I'm done. I'm leaving now. I'm logging off. Just playing. So for me, I always encourage anyone who can to turn on their cameras, because it's always nice to kind of see people's reactions when you're talking, and you can engage. And it's, we're all nervous, but really excited to be talking to you guys. So yes, I can see some cameras turning on. Thank you. So just to add on to what Lerato started off with, so I'm an HR professional. So currently I'm an HR business partner. So my role involves working with different people across different areas of the business. Mentorship to me is more than just having someone support me. It's also about being a mentee and then also supporting everyone in the business. When I look back at my own journey, it started off at uni, and sometimes we don't even think of that. Or actually, before uni or university, I would have to say it started just in terms of the home. So touching on what Calvin said, and I promise I'm not copying everything that he said, but he's kind of touched on quite a lot of areas that I will also be touching on. But it's things like we have cousins or siblings that we look up to. I'm the oldest of three, so I have mentored my siblings. They wouldn't openly say that, but they, look up to me. They look at the steps that I've taken and maybe the areas where I've misstepped to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes. And that's part of mentoring. Then when you look at your school environment, it's the people that we look up to. So whether they're seniors or whether it's our teachers, they're also mentoring us and molding us into the future individuals who we're going to become. For me, on a personal level, I think formally when I found out about mentorship was through a manager when I was working part-time in hospitality, and I was trying to figure out what did I want to do? Where did my career take me? What did I want to actually focus on? I had studied a degree that I wasn't sure of in terms of what's the next step, and the opportunities were not coming. And she gave me the opportunity by developing me and giving me more responsibility. So she saw something and then mentored me into a role that later on became my career. So after that role, I then stepped into HR. After then doing that, I went back to school to learn a bit more and understand what HR was really about. And I wanted to put a twist on it in terms of focusing on the people element rather than just the processes. And then through that, there were mentorship programs as part of the course. And then in the UK, we have what we call CIPD. I know different countries also have an equivalent, or you can sign up for CIPD. In the States, they've got SHRM, and they also have different mentorship programs. And I do encourage, anyone who's in a leadership role or thinking of going into a leadership role to sign up to these platforms, because you get exposure to different types of leaders, but also mentorship programs. And then since then, I've always looked for mentors. So whether that's in my organization or external, I've been fortunate that some of the organizations that I've worked for had structured mentorship programs. So they had female-led programs where they were trying to get women into leadership. So they were structured. I will type it shortly. I'll type it, the name of the platforms. So specific leadership mentorship for women. And I recall one time when I stepped into my first senior management role, I asked to be mentored, and what the business did was they paired me with someone in another country and someone who was more established. And for me, it was navigating difficult conversations, especially if you're internal promotion, because these are people that you started the business with. These are your peers, and now you're managing them. And for me, I found that very valuable because, one, this is someone who's not in the business, sat next to you, but they understand the dynamics. So the theoretical side of things is always the same regardless. So as Calvin said, with the different organizations he's worked with, I'm sure he can give examples of the same way you need to deal with a difficult conversation in South Africa. It's probably the same way you need to deal with it in the UK, in the US. US slightly different because your laws are not as tight, but it's about knowing when to speak and how to speak. And one of the things that I really took from it was also positioning myself, because I was just so timid in my approach. And I was afraid to also voice my opinion because I was like, oh, it's my first management role. I don't want to come across mean. But then he really said to me that, would you think another manager would consider those things? The things that you're considering to be maybe timid or you're being this way, those are irrelevant. We also then had a book club, which was really useful because he would share resources with me that I needed to read. So books like such as Good Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. I know a lot of women who would have read that. Those have been really powerful. But also biblical references, because he was a Christian. So he talked about, for example, how Naomi and Ruth, how that was also mentorship, and just also like how you navigate different conversations. So after that, I also then was mentored by another manager, and then that was through COVID. So we were navigating some of the difficult conversations. And sorry to bring gender into this, but this also helped me because navigating a heavily male-dominated industry and trying to what they call keep your emotions in check. I had to have a mentor to support me in those conversations because I cannot change who I am, but it's about honoring who I am and implementing it in the organization. So really trusting myself because there's a reason why I'm in those roles. So sometimes having mentors, they reflect certain things that you don't see in yourself. And my most recent mentor is someone in the NHS. So I wanted to get into like potentially a director role, but I also just understand how the public sector works because I'm in the private sector. And we meet bi-weekly. We discuss maybe challenging conversations. We also discuss wins because in an HR role, you don't always get to celebrate, some of your successes because your successes could also be someone's loss. But it's about navigating, those different environments and then also being able to trust yourself. And another thing I'm going to add is podcasts. I am a big fan of podcasts. So although it's not direct communication, I really rely on those conversations that I'm listening to because especially in the HR environment, it's quite lonely sometimes because you can't always discuss the things that you're going through. You can't always be open, but listening to other individuals in the same industry or at least other people navigating conversations, it's always useful. So if that's okay, Lerato, and if that's okay, BYP, I would be happy to share some of the podcasts that I've listened to and also some books that I've read that have been really useful in my career. And then now reflecting in terms of opportunities that I've mentored individuals, I don't think I've openly looked for individuals who wanted to be mentored by me, but I think indirectly, some of the conversations you have with individuals, just like what Kelvin said, as Lerato also said, sometimes indirectly you could mentor someone based off your experience or the things that you've gone through. And sometimes it's about taking a step back and not imposing. And that's what I've always found. It's about advising and also reflecting because it's a two-way conversation. Sometimes someone will explain to you their situation and it's not about, oh, I've done it 10 times before, because the same rule doesn't always apply. So it's about reflecting and then considering, what is the best opportunity for that individual. And then outside of work environment, I always look out for mentors, whether it is a hobby that I'm trying to get into, whether that it's a passionate project. I always just ask if I can shadow someone, and maybe sometimes that's how it starts, just shadowing someone in what they do, and then having those conversations with them. So I've enjoyed mentorship. I think it has reaped so many benefits for me, and I am where I am because of the people around me. And mentorship isn't always about professional individuals, but it's family, it's friends, it's the community that you cultivate. And I think that's really important. And it's about making sure that no matter where you can, obviously, no matter where you leave, whether that's a business or organization, you leave a good relationship, because who knows how that person can mentor you. And sometimes when you change organizations, some of the conversations are easier because now you're not talking about the same manager who's managing both of you, but now you're navigating maybe different areas of your development. So I think that is it for me. I think I've covered my 10 minutes, if that's okay, or have I still got time?
No, you've done so well. Thank you so much for that. Because honestly, you super, super fed us. So I think part of your homework now is to go and type in the notes there just to share with everybody. Because wow, that was a lot of gems. Thank you so much for that. Because especially the podcast part, I think I love that, and I forget how that is so handy in terms of when you are just in your space. Like, and this is part of why I believe mentorship is very important and powerful, is because with what I think mixing what Calvin said right now and what Sibu's talking about podcasts, is there's so much information out there, but it depends on how you use it and how and who you get it from. So feed your soul with enough information that will take you to where you want to go in terms of your goals and your vision. So I believe that when you've got the right podcast in front of you, in your spare time, in your cooking time, or in your chilling time, instead of Netflixing, it could possibly potentially be the hobby that you could start doing. I mean, sometimes I do that, but at times I drop out of podcasts. But I believe when you really want to go into a topic, you need to master it. Mastering is one of the key things for being able to kind of cope with being inside a mentorship session, whether it goes on for years. And as we've seen from both examples, being mentored can go on for years. It doesn't have to just be a season or a program that just starts now and ends in 6 months time. So I think as you grow in your career, you'll choose the mentors that will, and I think Sibu gave a good example that there's peer-to-peer mentorship in work. So it doesn't have to be somebody that's a higher level than you. It can just be people on the same level that have maybe different background knowledge or different experiences. So I presume with most of us here probably on the call, most of you have probably potentially either mentored somebody or have been mentored. So one of the interesting things, I think Kelvin mentioned family and spoke about how charity begins at home. I find that my younger children do mentor each other. Like the younger one will mentor the older ones. She'll be able to kind of channel things and show them how things can be better done. So it also doesn't have an age gap or an age range. So it can be female, male, it can be any version. And I think another thing I want to just encourage people, like I said at the beginning, you don't have to be zoned in Leeds to be able to kind of join the mentorship program that we're creating here. This legacy is going to be very big. We are going to be global. So I like that we're going to be able to channel ourselves. I think, again, Sibu mentioned how she was mentored throughout COVID. And you can imagine with COVID, people were not moving around. So you may have not been meeting the person that was mentoring you. But yeah, I think I've got a few questions for you guys. What I like and what I really appreciate is that you've covered quite a lot. I think one of the ones that I just want to go back to about timidity, Sibu, is just to I want to make it relevant. So I want you to speak a little bit more about that, because I know I come from a timid background. And when I told people I'm shy, people were like, Lorato, you're not shy. But I'm a very timid person naturally. So we tend to have those kind of traits. But just give me more like give me a way to understand how you've navigated timidity from your mentorship.
Very good question. How have I navigated that? So I guess I'll give an example of a previous organization I worked for. So for this organization, I was promoted internally, which is really good and really exciting. However, I also then was sitting in meetings with people maybe that I looked up to before, and my mentor at that time said to me, if someone challenges things, instead of you just kind of shying away and saying I'll come back to you, maybe ask for clarification, because you being timid or shying away from resolving something, it makes it seem like you're not worthy to be in that room. So then I had to actually ask the questions to then get clarity and be able to address it. The being timid, I think, also came from my cultural background and socialization as well, because then it's a case of like, you don't ask questions, like you don't challenge your elders or you don't challenge people who are more senior than you. But I had to remember that even though my title's not as senior as them, I deserve a seat at this table. And if they're challenging, are they challenging because I haven't explained correctly, or are they challenging for the sake of just challenging? And when I started asking for clarity, there wasn't any challenges. It was just a case of how I was explaining. My mentor then taught me how to deliver certain proposals and presentations, how to make it concise, how to give detail where relevant, and also maybe sometimes just give a top line summary. And I think in that situation, that helped me elevate my role, but also give me confidence to be able to accept challenge as well. Because initially, I think I also took it personally. I thought, oh my gosh, they think I don't know what I'm talking about. But it was just about how I expressed myself. And I think that language element, and also the body language, and also how you communicate as well. So even basic things like how you respond to emails. Yes, let your personality come across, but then are you shying away from the question that you're being asked because you don't want to seem like you don't know, or do you just need clarity? So there's no harm in saying to someone, can you clarify XYZ? Or following the email, can you help me understand what you're requesting, right? So it's basic things that maybe sometimes we don't take the right way because maybe we are timid or we are conscious of whether or not we deserve that seat at that table, or sometimes we just don't know and we don't know the culture of that organization, and we are hesitant in addressing things because we just think that we have to accept the way things are. So I hope that's
Yeah, very good answer. And I think people really overlook the idea of when you go into a job, there's a need for you to just not only try and grow yourself as a person and get paid, right? There's a need for you to get into that space and have an understanding of that organizational culture and have that interrelationship and that interpersonality to be able to navigate who is senior to me, who can listen to me, is there somebody in the room. I can give experience, and you guys know it. I mean, Sibu and Calvin, you know that I'm this person that would have had a short temper for years. So when it comes to how I've navigated some of my career choices, I can put my hand up and say I'm one of the people that would walk out of a room and walk out of an office and give up that job, because then why am I still arguing with you? So I can imagine there's people that here that are quite young. You know, you want that person that will speak into you, speak into your future, show you the advantages of that job and why it's there in front of you, and help you navigate. I think navigate is one of the biggest things about mentorship, kind of drive you in a certain direction. So I think that's very powerful that, you've mentioned the timidity coming from the cultural perspective. As most of us as Black people, there's different types of Black people, different aspects of how we are raised. Some of us have been told to just be children who sit quietly. You're just not heard, you're just seen. So that comes from that. So when we now come into places where we need to be empowered and to speak up and to break those ceilings and go into the leadership positions, we shy away just because. And literally, I'm just going to leave it at that. I've got a question for you, Calvin. So I want you to give me a perspective of what makes a mentor impactful, but I want you to speak from the mentee side. So what if you were a mentee? I want you to give me like maybe 3 or 4 points that would show you that, okay, this person has made an impact.
Thank you. So I think number one is there are some people that you go to and you can tell or see that they're not willing to share information. So I think for me is number one is when you see progress, in terms of like, let me try and give you an example. So with my profession, health and safety, when I started, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have an idea what health and safety was. So when I pursued my mentor and I started asking questions, so many questions, because sometimes they always say there's no stupid question, but I'll ask those questions that were obvious. But I think number one, with the feedback and the information that he was giving me, I started seeing progress in my life in terms of understanding health and safety. And then, secondly, also is um, as a mentoree, is the person who, if he's doing a follow-up, because a good mentor will give you task to say, okay, you're coming to me. I'm not just giving you information. There are targets. Okay, so you said you want to study. How far are you? Have you saved money? Do you have a plan? You know what? So there's that thing where they do a follow-up and they give you targets or there is a task. So that also helps you. And thirdly, um, I think is when I think I mentioned this. I said, you know what, when you're so close to someone, it's not always what they tell you. And I said the statement say there's impartation by association. You begin to sort of act like them. If it's dress code when it comes to I love fashion, you know what, you begin to sort of like see, yourself, in where if people listen to that person and they listen to you, like you are almost talking the same language and all that. So there'll be sort of like similarities, so that also gives you that confidence. So oh, okay, I might not be there yet, but there are certain things I'm beginning to see change, in my life. So I think those three things, that's how it will also motivate you to say, okay. And also again, I think also as a mentoree, you also have to also do your own research. As much as you trust your mentor, when they give you information, don't just say that's it. also go back and do your own research. So that's also how you evaluate to say, okay, so this is a good mentor. He knows what he's talking about. Because sometimes it can be easy to be misled. Someone can give you information, and then later on you realize, oh, geez, I made a blunder. But it was because of what the mentor gave. So those are some of the things that you begin to see to say, okay, because you have to do your own research. If you are being my mentor and I'm coming to you and I'm seeking for advice, is this something that you are doing? And is this something that is genuine? I don't know if I did answer correctly.
Oh wow, those were powerful. I mean, he said follow up, make sure that you probe this mentor, make sure you run after him. You don't, because this is you, this is your career as a mentee. If it's career, if it's business, entrepreneurship, if you follow up until you get to the result that you want, and you've given me that the targets and the tasks that are set throughout that series or that session or that time. That's really powerful. I think we shouldn't forget that when you're doing that kind of mentorship program, there'll definitely be a structure in place. So even if you guys are having just general conversations, especially if it's obviously meeting or virtual or otherwise, there will be things that will be put in place for you. But say, for example, your mentor was somebody that you didn't necessarily relate to or speak to directly, you can still just set yourself your own targets to say, I want to read these books from this person by this amount of time. So that's powerful. And one of the other things you said, impartation by association. That's power. That's going to be my new status for WhatsApp. It's really good. Very decent. It's really good. I think it really counts because wherever you are in your journey, there's always somebody that you look up to. So when you look up to that person, it's image, it's the way that person has visualized what they wanted to achieve, and it's their story. So that's how you then engage and kind of start to want to pull in and say, let me move closer to this person and become like them. And yes, you've said research. I think research is very important and powerful, because when you're not when it's not about laziness, is it? It's not about just saying, oh, my mentor, I'll call them, they'll tell me what to do and I'll just do what they said. It's about really going all around and making sure that you yourself are making an effect on what you are being mentored to do. So no, that's really good. That's really powerful. And I think some of the questions I had for you guys, you have answered them amazingly. And I think it really just gives me an encouragement to say that there's quite a lot that we need to achieve. I believe on the call we definitely have younger people that want to be mentored. I could have shouted you out, but yeah, no, I choose not to. There's quite a few people on the call, and I can believe that there's other people that are in executive roles that would want to mentor somebody all over the world. Really, that's why I said the reach is global. So really powerful, answers that you guys have given me. I think one last question I want to ask, and it's going to come for both of you, and I'll start with Sibu. What role does community play in career development? What do you think?
It's everything. So I think like it's for me, I'll speak from my own experience. I think it's everything is the foundation, because it leads the decisions that we make, and oftentimes it's also the career choices. So whether we go for a certain role or we don't, it's our community, because that's part of our socialization. I think our community teaches us about mentorship. It teaches us how to navigate relationships, and a mentorship it's about a relationship. So if you've never learned the basics of navigating a relationship between yourself and your siblings, yourself and your parents, or even just like your wider community, it then makes it harder to then build that relationship with your mentor. So it plays a really big part, and it also helps navigate getting the right mentors. So with some of the best mentors that I've had in my life, I've met them through friends, or I've met them through family members, because I've asked a question and I've said, oh, I want to navigate this. How do I go about it? And someone's like, oh, I know this person. So I'll shout out one of my family members. She works in London. I won't say the actual name, but I did say to her, like, okay, I want to navigate this HR world. How do I go about it? And I also want to speak to someone who maybe has navigated it, but then maybe in a different sector, and they've developed in the same organization. And it's just like, oh, okay, I've got these three people. I've worked with them, in HR already, and now they've become my friends. So how about I connect you? And she literally sent an email, copied me in, and that's how she introduced us. So for me, that sense of community is just that small step that could help someone else. Or it's resharing someone's LinkedIn post. We share so much on Instagram. How about you reshare someone's business page? You never know who you're connecting them to. It might be just forwarding someone's message to another person, because, you know, there is so much joy in giving, and the more you give, the more you receive. And it's always a case of from abundance flows more abundance. And sorry, I know we might be different religions, but I'll just give this example. And I was listening via my podcast, but I was listening, I was listening to an episode, and they're talking about the story of the talents. And I'd never heard it this way, but they said the story of the talents also focuses on faith. So the talents were given because the boss had had faith that each of his employees was going to multiply what they were given, right? So already by faith they were trusted with that talent. Yes, the person who wasn't strong in their faith didn't really multiply that talent, but actually decided to hide it. But it wasn't hiding because he didn't have the expertise or the ideas, but it was out of fear. The others multiplied it because they had the faith and the knowledge that, you know what, I can take this one thing and multiply it. So the same way I might have an idea, I might not be able to execute it, but if I pass it to Calvin, Calvin might have the resources. He will then multiply it because he's got the resources, but also he's got the scope to expand it. But by me giving to him, it doesn't take away from me, because it just means now we've got a good relationship. And next time something else comes up, it's going to be like, I know this HR professional. See, there's this thing that's come up. And then that will then come back to me. So already we're multiplying our talents within this community. So I think for me, that's been a great lesson, that you can't withhold, things and keep it to yourself. You're blocking your own blessings. Share, and then it will be multiplied. So I definitely think that community for me plays a big role.
Oh, profound. Oh my God, that is very powerful. And I think the fact that you've spoken about LinkedIn, I'm sure some of you guys maybe follow me on LinkedIn, but there's always that area where there's the gray area where people don't know whether to share your thing or not to share your thing. But I've learned so much from just being on LinkedIn as a platform and looking at how people really share a lot of different stories that impacts you in a different way, for whether it's professionally or not. So some people might share their personal stories, but other people generally share their work experiences. So when you look at that, you're like, wow, okay, this is how these people. And to be fair, I can say to you guys, I've probably got a lot of mentors that don't know they're my mentors on LinkedIn. So I think I really appreciate the way you've articulated that community aspect of it. And I think the parable of the talents was amazing, because it showed you how, we don't really see that there's room for all of us. We can all grow. We can collaborate. We can work as a community. There's room for all of us to grow. So really, really powerful. But yet, throwing it back to you, Kelvin, what do you think? What role does community play in career development?
I think what I'll do, I'll steal Sibu's words, but package them in my own way, because I think she really divined it so well. But I think for me, a strong community is a place where it creates a safe place where people feel seen, supported, where you get support, and maybe you're also valued. Within that space, mentorships, that's where it happens more natural. So I like being practical. When we were growing up, as kids, they'll say, you guys go and play. But whilst we are playing, that's where we would discover some gifts, talents, strengths, and weaknesses within, you know. And when I was growing up, it's so funny that my late father, he was a football coach, and I was very good with football. But guess what? I never got support from him. That's why maybe I never pursued that career. So for me now, within the community or where I stay, if I see a young kid who's good and I see potential, I pursue that, and I even pursue the parents to say, there is a gift, there is a talent. Can you nurture it? So that's how the community works. It's not just about one person giving advice. It's about shared experiences, collective growth, and open doors for one another. Like in this platform, we can be a community, and the community forms a body. It's like a body. Some your eyes, some your hands, your fingers, so eyes can't do what the hands can do. You know what? But if you are good at seeing things, because sometimes you can see beyond, we have to call you and say, please come and cover this gap. If I'm good at being sent and I run and I get things done, that comes together and informs a community. So it's identifying, those gaps and say, okay, I see there's a gap there. Because, like Siwo spoke about resources, someone can have a good idea and maybe I have finance. But when we come together and say, can I invest in you? Can I give you money? You know what? Can you want to start, like, just to say this, when I started my journey doing health and safety, the diploma was so expensive. I think in rands it was around 40,000 rands by then. That was about in 2011, 2012, and I was in between jobs. But someone came in and said, I'm gonna pay 50% of that, and that's community. It's identifying the gaps and coming together to say, I'm gonna give what I have. I'm going to share what I've, like now we are also sharing. It can be an information. It can be that one talent. She spoke about talents. It can be a reference. You say, you know what, you're struggling with this, but I know Lerato is good at setting up a CV. You've been sending CVs, but you're not getting feedback. I know someone who can assist you. That forms a community where we identify our strengths, our weaknesses, our giftings, and we come together and form a strong body. So, community, I think, is powerful. And why, in wrapping up, I spoke about that. I lost my parents when I was young. Also, community, that's where you also find your big brother, your big sister, because you can tell that this person is lonely. When you're at school, you identify people that during break time they didn't have lunch. So if you're the big brother, big sister, you'll be making sure, like, come, let's share together. Oh, here's money. That's community. Identify those gaps. So where you are, where you stay, within the family, within your neighbors, whether you're at school, whether you're working, identify that's a community and start making an impact, and giving. It can be an information, it can be an idea, it can be a reference, it can be money. At the end of the day, this is community. And I like what Siwa says, the more you give, the more you receive. It's a principle. But if you are holding, I like doing this. If my hand is holding something, I can't receive. But when I give away, my hand is ready to receive again. Thank you.
Wow, wow. Look at that. That's very powerful as well. And I think that statement on its own, just learning that communities it's like it's a giving space. I think one thing that we tend to forget. So here there could potentially be people that were born in Africa and they've migrated to the UK. Then there's people that were born in the UK, probably to African parents or the other, black different types of parents. Then there could be people that are, just local UK people. Our cultures differ by where we were born and how we were raised. So what one of the things that Calvin's mentioned, which is interesting, is that we were taught to share, like we were taught to give to each other. But I realized, and I don't know, I could be wrong, that when you're in the UK, you're just taught to just stick to your own and mind your own business. So that's something that is not culturally ingrained in us. I think the initial part, it comes from the Bible, as you guys have given biblical references, and then it expands into the community wide, whether we are Christians or not. So I believe so many religions have that aspect of giving. It's the law of the universe. It doesn't matter. The law of the universe doesn't matter whether you worship God or you're Christian. It's a law, and that law stands, and it's like it's similar to, the gravity, the law of gravity. If you're going to go up, you're going to fall down. So those laws are abiding. They're there for us to just maintain. So I love that you've mentioned that about community and sharing. Really, the breaking of bread, community is very impactful. So I like that you guys have heard that from these two speakers. Thank you so much for your time. I love that. And yes, I just want to reemphasize some of the points that they've made, that peer-to-peer mentorship is there. Mentorship is important because it starts from socialization, in the sense that where you go, your network is your net worth, is what we say. Where you go, where you kind of speak to. And I think Sibu gave that idea and that impression that, look, you can speak to your aunties, you can speak to your auntie's friend at a party and you're socializing, but that can grow into a kind of network in the space that you want to breed and grow. I think Kelvin has mentioned a lot about his family, his childhood, even the football aspect of it. There's people that, we're not just mentoring in Korea, by the way. There's mentorship in sports. So part of what what we look at for me is always just how we as Black people exist in the world. Like, we are known a lot for art. We're known a lot for sports as well, because you can see how the sports world is transforming. There's loads of like African names on there, and I'm like, wow, should I start watching football again? That's very fascinating, honestly, just seeing that happen. So yeah, this is it. This is our time. I think it's a time now in society for us to grow and not feel challenged to do so, for us to kind of extend and expand how we can exist in the world and fulfill purpose. And I think that's what, for me, mentorship is. So it's really being able to get into those spaces, whether it's your first job, but you want to make an impact. By the time you leave, don't burn bridges, by the way. Don't be like me. Don't leave any company without, just closing that chapter on a correct form. And that's part of the mentorship process that I'd love for people to really take the journey to go on. Making sure that when you leave a company, you give enough notice, even if you're offended, you should be able to kind of close that chapter on a good note. It's really important and impactful for me to see everybody that's on the call. I think I will give this opportunity for people to ask questions. Please feel free to throw your questions across to the speakers. And just before, I guess we can't really clap loud, but yeah, just thank you again to these guys. You guys have done such an amazing job. Coming onto this platform for me was a big deal. So thank you so much for your gems that you are dropping. But yeah, I'll give Q&A. Somebody has asked any podcast recommendation. I think the name is Benedict Bolumbe, and I don't know what podcasts you want to know about. Just be specific so we can give some. But I think Sibu's shared a few podcasts as well. So what podcasts are you looking for? Is it mentorship specifically, or is it like a different sector or specific one? But yeah, this is time for you guys. I open the floor. Does anybody have any questions? I love how it's so quiet. Did you guys overspeak so no people don't have anything to ask again? That is interesting.
Hi, can I just say something? Hi, Loretta.
Oh my God. Hello,
Are
Jamelia.
you
How are you
okay?
doing?
I'm
Yes.
doing well, thank you.
Oh, thank you for being
I'm
here.
doing well. It's fine. Sorry, somebody's ringing me. Sorry, 1 minute.
Oh, bless you. Yes. Does anybody else have any questions, any contributions, guys, when we're opening the floor for you guys?
Can I add something before someone asks a question, if that's okay?
Go on.
I just think
Yeah.
when you were talking about community, I think it'll be really good as well. Like, how many are we here? Maybe 23 or let's say 22. If we all follow you on LinkedIn to see you grow the
Yes,
community.
please. Yes.
Maybe, and also maybe another thing that I found really useful is on LinkedIn, you can write like a little summary of your experience with the person. And I think that also goes a long way, especially if you're looking for a mentor or if you're looking to be mentored. It's also a great way to kind of get your name out there. So,
Yes. Definitely follow me on my LinkedIn. My socials are quite open, and there's a lot that we're going to be doing as BYP guys, and even wider than BYP. So, I myself am an HR recruitment kind of business person. I want to call myself that. So, I've got a company that helps with recruitment, especially in the construction and engineering sectors, but we'll partner with organizations like worldwide in terms of that. We will recruit for, it's not those specific roles only that we'll recruit for. So feel free to connect in that aspect. I'm not selling my business, but I'm just saying we will be going into the mentorship space as well from that side of things. So it's also quite mentorship related, really. So thank you, Sibu, for saying that. If anybody really, we've put the link at the top of the comments. If you can follow us into the WhatsApp group, and then we can keep you posted with as much information as possible. There's obviously on the group we'll share what jobs we have. BYP has partnered with a lot of companies. I'm not sure if everybody was here when we got the introduction, but going back to Kike and how she really identified that there was a gap within the community that Black people, were kind of struggling to get into certain roles, certain companies. But she's partnered with a lot of companies just so that people could really get the doors open on their behalf, because you know how it's been hard to knock on doors. But if somebody does it for you already, she's created this platform for all of us to be able to do that. So you realize once you've joined that, once in a while, probably once a week, I think Ayo might explain a bit on that again later on, that once a week she'll share like jobs that are available countrywide. I think we do get them worldwide as well. I've seen some in Singapore, I think. So we get jobs everywhere, worldwide, in terms of especially IT. I think that those are the main areas that we specialize in, but we do get quite a few different ones as well, senior and junior roles. But yeah, Jamilia is back, so I don't know what you wanted to say.
Hi, darling. Sorry,
Yes, that's fine.
I got cut off. I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
I've enjoyed the speech and the speakers so far. The thing
Thank
that I
you.
was thinking in my mind is when they were talking about community. Community, unity is community.
Yes.
And I always, opportunities always will arise. When you spoke about timidity, I realized that the confidence definitely comes from above. And I
Oh, wow.
believe, yeah, most definitely. I feel like we're all on the same level. But when you know who you are, I really enjoyed watching the film called The Matrix. When you watch The Matrix and when he realizes who he is, anything was possible. And in Christ, that's the same thing. So we're all on the level of nobody knows everything. But when we walk into a meeting with confidence and the opportunity arises, it's always good to grab it with both hands and run with it.
Yes.
You know,
Awesome.
God says that He hasn't given us a spirit of fear or timidity, but of love, power, and of a sound mind. And
Love
that
it.
is so
Love it.
powerful. And I
Love it.
appreciate the wise words tonight from the speakers. I've enjoyed tonight. It's been really, really
Thank you.
interesting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my God, this is my lovely sister Jabilia. Thank you so much. I appreciate your comments. Very profound. And thank you for that, because the sound mind is something that, if you look now, the world is really under a spell or a shadow that everybody thinks we are all mentally unable.
Yeah.
But we are not of that generation. We are
No.
not of that tribe. We're not of that group. We are more than, we're more than conquerors. We're peculiar people. So I believe that
Amen.
everybody that's on here knows that.
Yeah,
And yeah, we definitely walk in faith. So thank you so much for that.
it's okay.
Can I?
Perfect. I think Sean has
Yeah.
sorry, Kelvin. Sean has asked a question,
Oh,
and I don't
okay.
know who he's asking, but I'll just read it now. So he says, how can we better mentor and encourage one another to not only dream, but dream big, notwithstanding one's circumstances? And that's a powerful one, Sean. And I think I won't go into it in detail. I think I'll probably throw it back to the speakers again and just ask one of you guys to kind of, I think you are asking basically, how do you dream big without worrying about, maybe right now you're in a small place. I feel like Calvin will be able to answer that question, simply because he has mentioned at the beginning of the conversation how he started from grassroots and seeing where he is now. And I think even the accolades could tell you that you start from somewhere and you take a step forward. So, but I'll leave that to Kelvin to answer. Kelvin, can you see the question, or do you want me to read it again?
Yes, I see the question. Thank you for that. I'll start by saying this, because we're talking about mentorship. When I talk about mentorship, you are looking for something that you don't have. We have like, I don't have, I want to be there. That person is far up there, and we are looking at the gap and all that. But one of the things that I forgot to mention is a good mentor helps you discover that gift in you, because each and every person has that gift inside of you.
Wow.
But so a good mentor will help you discover that thing within you. And like my sister spoke about, your identity, once you know who you are, once you discover, there's a book that I read that says your assignment is not your decision, but your discovery. Discovery talks about something that is hidden. So each and every person has something that is hidden, but the moment you discover that, it changes your life. And I like giving practical examples. There's this brother who got married, and they started cooking for him. So he had to grow, his weight and all that. So most of his clothes he couldn't fit. So he gave them to the young brother. So the young brother, there was this white shirt, particular shirt, but it had a red logo. He used to like white shirts, but it had this red logo. So because of the logo, he never used to wear the shirt. So then what happened one day, he didn't have an option. That was the only shirt that was there. But you know what? He had to cover the shirt by putting on a jacket because he wanted to cover the red part. But because it was quite warm when he was around people, he forgot and removed the jacket. And after that, people saw the shirt and everyone started going to him like, wow, that's a nice shirt. You're looking clean. You're looking good. You are the one who's going to buy us lunch today. And he was curious, like, why are people coming to me? And then quickly he noticed that it was the shirt. So he went on Google to check, the brand. And then he discovered that it was those expensive shirts, those ones for 800 pounds and all that. Do you know what he did? He changed his confidence. How
Wow.
he started like walking big, like, yeah, yeah. And everyone like, yo, you look good. Like, yeah, I look good. But guess what? All along, he was wearing the shirt. He didn't know the value of the shirt. He didn't
Wow.
discover. But the moment he identified and discovered that what I'm carrying is something a pressure. So
Absolutely.
going to that question is, remember, with a dream, there's no limitation. Never limit yourself. Whether if you want to say, I want to get to where Elon Musk is, you are setting a target because it's important. You have to be a visionary. Don't limit yourself. You rather stretch yourself. So it doesn't matter where you are. I don't want to go into the Bible and all that because we spoke a lot about that. So
Yeah.
number one, for me, when I was young, growing up coming up from a bad background, I never limited myself. And I kept saying, one day I will get there. So what it does when you stretch yourself, it makes you work so hard, to put pressure to say, I need to double, in terms of studies, I need to double. In terms of working on myself, I need to double, so that I get there. But if your target is so small, you don't put a lot of effort because it's just like, it's like, okay, let me give you an example. If you want to raise 100 pounds, you know that by end of the month, if I'm saving about 15 pounds, I'll be able to raise it by end of the year. But if you are saying you want to raise 1,000 pounds, you will increase, which means you are starving yourself and you are saving more money. So that's the good thing to say. Never, you can undermine and whatever, but never just look up. The key is be a visionary, see beyond, and tell yourself that I'm carrying something. You're just waiting for someone to unlock the gift that you have. Because
And
all people who are great, it's so funny how God does it. Most people who are great, when they're up there and they tell us their stories, you'll be thinking, they cooked. Everyone talks about poverty, poverty. No, 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 no. It's because they want to use you and become a testimony, one day. So I don't know if I did answer correctly.
Okay. I believe you did. Those were good examples. And I think Sean has gone and asked again and said it's hard for Black people poor in the township to think of themselves as one day becoming a millionaire. And I think, listen, it's not, this one is it hits home because a lot of us come from probably very poor backgrounds. We come from places where you never thought, maybe, for example, where I come from. And I've always said the story laughing because where I grew up, you could never find people maybe that even spoke like myself. So the fact that then I could look and say, I look forward to going to a different country and getting there and achieving certain things I've achieved. It was never served on a platter, honestly. And I think it's one of those things where the differentiation is in us now giving this opportunity to say, as a poor Black kid and your background there, where you're starting from, who do you look up to, and how do you actually create a structure that becomes a path? So that question itself is basically why we're doing the series. That question is answering we are answering that question, because if you are poor and you've started from a poor background and you still keep that capacity and that mental strength at that level, you'll stay at that level. But how many of us have given examples throughout this process that we looked up to certain people? We looked up to, people that I've given Miles Monroe, people that are no longer alive, we looked up to. And we followed, and we read, we listened, we changed our algorithms. We stopped watching porn. We stopped watching all the other things that don't make us grow mentally. And we started listening to the right, and we consumed the right information. And I think that's an answer that probably gives that in a nutshell. I see the time is quite moving, but how many more questions? I think Ava has put up her hand. Feel free to turn your mic on, Ava, and ask the question you have.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for your speeches. My question is going to be connecting two of the different topics. So one of them is about the cultural differences, especially in the UK, how maybe UK people, they don't really interact very much, or they're not really straightforward at all. And then also with what Kelvin was saying, when he was saying, when you have a mentor, someone who wants to support you, how you really have to keep knocking on their door. So how do you marry the two here in the UK? Like, how does it come from when you're just being too persistent, especially like, as an American and stuff like that, we're just taught to say, this is what I want, X, Y, and Z. And people are totally okay with that. But then like in the UK, if you speak that way, maybe they feel you're too pushy and they don't want to interact with you anymore. So then like, how do you balance those two to where you're trying to get the support you need, especially if the person says they want to help you, but at the same time, you're not being too persistent where the person is turned off?
Wow, that's powerful. And I think that goes back. I don't know who on the platform here has worked in like business analysis and key stakeholder management. That's one of the interview questions that they ask. So it's like, how do you continually knock on a door when somebody doesn't want? So I guess for example, within that setting, you would want, especially if it's business, you would want to channel yourself to understand how else. So you ask yourself, how have I been knocking on this person's door? Was I sending them an email? And if I sent an email, did they see the email? Did they read it? Do I know that they read it? Or what other communication method can I use? Have I gone to their office and they've not opened the door? Maybe they're busy. What are they busy doing? So all those are kind of things. And I get what you mean. Your approach is quite relevant because, like you say, when it comes to certain things that we want to get done, we want them now. So other people will definitely just, especially I think with me, I've had issues with people that I've sent messages to and they stay long without reading the message. It's one tick or two ticks, but there's no blue tick. And then you find that that's maybe the only method you have. But I presume there should be different ways in which you can navigate communicating, opening the communication channels. How did you meet that person is another one. Who is the person that led you to meet that person? Can they be the one that kind of goes back to them and say, look, this person's been looking for you this amount of times? Another one for UK is paper trail. So make sure that when you're emailing, you've got the copies of like information and evidence to say, look, I've tried to get, depending on who you're reporting back to say, I've tried to reach this person. I'm thinking in terms of like just in a job role. But if it means business as well, it might just be different. But yeah, that's an interesting one that you've asked. And I think Sibu's ready to answer you on that one.
Yes, I wanted to answer because my current mentor is currently busy in terms of workload, so we haven't been able to meet up. But one of the things that he said initially when he started the mentor-mentee relationship was that I was very clear in terms of expectations and timeline. So maybe in terms of knocking, are you just knocking and not really expressing what you're looking for? So maybe clarity. So for example, setting expectations. Hi, my name is Sibu. I want to get into this industry. You're someone that I met at the BYP mingle in Leeds on such and such a day. I would love to be mentored by you. And for me, mentoring means XYZ. I'll be really keen to have like an intro call with you. How about Friday, Saturday, Sunday, these times? I look forward to hearing from you. And you do one more chaser. If they then don't respond, at least you've been very clear and detailed. Because I think sometimes chasing without direction is also very like confusing, because if you imagine someone who's busy, they probably get hundreds of emails, but how are you making yourself stand out? So sometimes that's quite key. So even when you do meet individuals, how are you presenting yourself and setting that expectation? So I'll go back to a Leeds BYP event. Let's say Lerato holds an event. You meet different people that you're really keen on meeting. You can ask them, how would you like me to approach you? Because I'm really keen on building a relationship with you. What is the best way to communicate with you and to kind of get this moving? So get that information. And I know we do say the British are very like polite, but even in the politeness, I think if you're clear, I think there's a balance between pushy and then being clear. So in the pushiness, are you being clear? And if someone says, just give me a call, then call them. So I've had mentors, and sorry, Calvin, you've got an answer. I've had mentors where I've had to call them multiple times and then say, okay, I'm really keen, but actually, instead of having a phone call, when next are you around? Can I come and meet you and let me understand what you do? And as a result of that, I've had doors open for me. But also on the other side, I've nagged too much to the point where someone blocked me. So it's just about getting the balance right. I'm not saying it's always going to be, the right way, but it's just about be true to yourself, but also make sure that you make your voice heard and your intention known. So it's just that intentionality of, okay, I'm here because XYZ. If you can help me, let me know. If you're not able to support me on this right now, would you be able to point me to someone who can?
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's powerful. That's powerful. Love that. I think I'll let Kelvin answer that last one. Does anybody else have a question? Please just show by putting up your hand, but I'm limited for time. I'm only left with 2 minutes. So I'll let Kelvin answer that before I can go into like the conclusive part of our program.
Yes, I just want to add to what Sivo said. People are busy. UK is a different setup. However, you just have to be strategic, just to add on what Sivo said. So one of my mentors, because he's very busy, he's always busy. So what I'll do, because you follow the mentor, like we spoke about LinkedIn, you can follow them. Oh, okay, on this day they'll be in this place or whatever. So I'll volunteer and say, I see you are going to this place. Can I drive you? And he'll be like, oh, okay. He's thinking of driving himself, and I'm offering to bring my own car and drive him. He's not going to say no. So he say, okay. So while I'm driving, now it's an opportunity for me to be asking questions. So you just have to be creative, find those gaps, because it's also, if you're calling them when they're at work, you're calling them when it's family time, you know what, you're not going to get. So you just have to find ways, follow them. And secondly, if it's for me, one of my mentors is my pastor. So if he's going to preach in a certain place, I'll go and you'll find me. They're like, oh, so you're here, you're following me. You know what, the third, the fourth time is not going to say no. So you
Yeah.
just have to keep it. I know this one might sound, for guys
Preaching.
who are following you, ladies, if he comes first time, second time, and he doesn't try again, you don't give them a chance. But if the guy keeps knocking and calling you, one day be like, okay, say whatever you wanna say. So you just have to be creative, find ways and ideas on how to get, because the truth is we are all busy and people are busy. Thank you.
Wow, that's excellent. I think one of the things that I take away from that is that giving back the value as well. It depends on the setting, depends on why you're looking for that connection. If you're looking for a mentorship, obviously, or you're looking for that person to support you in a certain decision, then things like giving back value. I think there's something that we undermine in ourselves. And I want to go back to Sean's point about how, we're deeply limited by our beliefs. Do you know the Bible? Sorry, we're going to reference it forever. It says, be renewed by the transformation of your mind. So when you become a Christian, you become called to a certain level and your brain or your mindset becomes elevated. And this is something that happens even if you're not Christian. It's actually quite dynamic in religious beliefs. So you become elevated. So your power becomes your brain. So how you channel yourself to who you are. Somebody else mentioned self-belief, a journey of self-discovery, which is the mentorship programs. Really understanding who you are, loving yourself first, and understanding that, okay, what I'm looking for in this person. And this is another thing. If you love yourself enough, you will know whether you need to pursue that person or not. you understand how far you need to go with that pursuit, chasing that person. So I believe that we want to give strength in who we are. We want to try and minister to ourselves to understand that, okay, this is where I have power, this is where I have value. So what value do I give this person? What can I exchange before they can start seeing who I am? I think that covers quite a lot of what we have said throughout here. So yeah, I know we've given quite a few biblical references, but I think they're quite I've heard from some people that the Bible is so old that we don't relate to it, but people are lost. That is one thing that is not true. There's a lot of biblical stories that we could use as reference, definitely. And it's not only because we're Christian; it's because they're quite valuable lessons in life in general. I don't know about you. I've got quite a few mentors in the Bible, so it's one of the go-to books that I have. So yeah, I'll keep kind of channeling that on this platform, and hopefully I'm not offending anybody. But yeah, that's it. I don't think we've got any further questions, and I'm conscious of time. But yeah, I think the main thing that we have right now is for you guys to click the link and join the platform on WhatsApp. We'll keep you as informed as possible, like I said, particularly in terms of job roles that are opening up and opportunities that will kind of the idea is the roles that we have as BYP are companies that already are inclusive, and they love diversity, inclusion, and that's the biggest advantage that you have. But creating a space like this is just for you guys to understand that beyond getting that job, there is other challenges that can come in that position. You get the job, but what else? How do you now go into a new level in that position? Is there somebody there in that role in that company that looks like you, or somebody that you relate to that you can go and speak to about things? And that's how you know that you can come back to BYP and we can be of support. But yeah, I think this is where we leave it. And I just want to thank everybody, one and all. Thank you, even for those that registered and couldn't make it. I just want to give thanks and gratitude. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you. Can I chase you away because I've got a meeting in 10 minutes? Can I say bye to everybody? Wow, bye
Thank
everyone.
you
Love
so
you so
much.
much.